If there ever was a Sonic game that has been getting a lot of love lately, that would be Sonic 06. And Sonic Lost World, I guess. And Shadow the Hedgehog. And what I'm getting at is that this is the Sonic cycle. Good game bad, bad game good. And that's almost the case for every Sonic game. But recently, there's been a number of people calling the next game an underappreciated, underrated gem. That game, of course, being Sonic and the Black Knight. As one of the few people who does really like the game and has beaten it quite a number of times ever since I played it back in 2021. It took me that long to play this, oh my god. And 15 years after the game was released, this game is really 15 years old. Holy crap, where has the time gone? I finally talk about this game and my actual thoughts and feelings on it. Did it deserve the hate it got back in 2009? Does it deserve to have the praise it's gotten as of late? What do I think of Sonic and the Black Knight? Well, let's get into it. Our story begins with a wizard running away from this gigantic guy with a cool horse, who takes his sword and opens a portal to the underworld. Being cornered, the wizard calls forth a knight, opening a portal to which Sonic falls to his death. As Sonic gets up, he saves his chili dogs like a true hero. Sonic just got into this world and spends no time to take on the evil monsters. God, he's so cool. When Sonic was about to fight the knight, get it? The wizard somehow grabs Sonic's hand. So much for being the fastest thing alive. The wizard pulls Sonic and teleports him away, but lost his true love, the chili dog. After that, we get introduced to the Knights of the Round Table, Lancelot, Gawain, and Percival, aka Shadow, Knuckles, and Blaze, and their designs are pretty rad. They also reveal that the king is none other than King Arthur. Or so we think. We get an art style change, which I think is really damn good. I always loved how this game's cutscenes looked. Back to the story though. We get some exposition about Excalibur, King Arthur, and Scabbard. We also get to know the wizard's name, Merlina the Wizard. Do you get it? Because it's like Merlin the Wizard. And all I gotta say is that she is one of my favorite Sonic characters in the series. I'll get into it later on. She talks about King Arthur and how he used to be loved and such a fair man, but he got sidetracked. She also tells us that Gnu gave Arthur Excalibur, but he only cared about the scabbard, which gave him immortality. Yeah, I too would only care for that if I was an evil maniac. And Sonic says,
"It'll be like Halloween all year long!"
Well, beyond the Mystic Lake lies the Excalibur. As Sonic goes running off, he gets a hand armor. Along the way, Sonic defeats a dragon. Yep, a dragon. And fairly easy at that. Even Merlina comments on that. Sonic finds the Master Excalibur. But if he defeats King Arthur with it, he shall forever be known as the worst of knights, slayer of kings.
Guess I can't be the hero every time.
You said it, Sonic. And when he pulls the Master Excalibur, it can... This is Caliburn, and he calls Sonic Knave. But before we can do anything, Sonic must fight King Arthur. Let's do this! After one of the easiest fights ever, Sonic defeats Arthur, but not entirely. King Arthur escapes, leaving Sonic and Caliburn fighting. Caliburn suggests that we should look for Nunu, the Lady of the Lake, to see how we can defeat this asshole. I want to add that the bickering between Sonic and Knave I want to add that the bickering between Sonic and Caliburn is honestly really charming and at times kind of funny.
Whatever, you oversized letter opener.
As we walk around, Caliburn talks about losing his edge. I guess you could say he is not the sharpest tool in the shed.
Ha! Not the sharpest tool in the shed, huh?
Oh, come on!
We must look for the blacksmith. While we discuss that, Merlina is kinda having an existential crisis about death and all of that. Great dialogue though. And foreshadowing.
Why do flowers bloom, knowing they are destined to wither?
We find the blacksmith and it's Tails! Oh, but it's not really Tails. It's the Smithy. While I don't like believing myself, I love the rendition in this game, and Tails being a blacksmith is so fitting. Anyway, he works on the sword. We go through the forest and find Lancelot just waiting for us. He challenges us to a duel and asks if we will fight or flee, to which Sonic's like, fleeing sounds good. Caliburn tells Sonic that a knight never flees a foe. I wonder if that will come back later. And accepts Lancelot's duel for him. We defeat Lancelot. Caliburn explains that Lancelot was the mightiest of the knights and the closest to King Arthur. Well, he was pretty pathetic when you put it that way. If only we could have a revenge against him. Anyway, Caliburn also tells Sonic that showing mercy to your enemies is an insult to a knight. And we also got one of the sacred swords. Woohoo! Anyway, we finally reach our destination and find Anu, the lady of the lake. And it's Amy? Isn't it funny how one of the best depictions of the character isn't even Amy? And that is the last time Amy is actually a good character in the series? So sad. Of course, she knows why we are here. And it's about Excalibur, where Sonic instantly makes a move on her. Okay, that's pretty funny. She gives us 3 tests to become a true knight. Free the innocents from Arthur's dungeon. Show compassion to those in need. And of course, defeat King Arthur's Knights of the Underworld. All in 3 days. What is with Sega's obsession with 3 days? We will never know. As we run around, we find a little girl crying in the middle of nowhere. It turns out that a dragon kidnapped her people. Sonic shows compassion and is gonna slay the dragon. Even if it isn't one of the tests from the Lady of the Underground, Sonic doesn't care because he does things his own way.
Yeah, maybe, but I play by my own rules. Remember that.
You fool.
Hang in there, kiddo. I'll get your folks back.
Ah, he's so cool! Along the way, we find Gawain. Sonic tries to talk with him, but Gawain doesn't listen, so we must fight this knucklehead. After we defeat Gawain, he feels dishonored and tries to end it all? Suicide in a Sonic game! I love it! Sonic stops Gawain from killing himself in the most Sonic way possible.
What's up with all this drama?
Gawain tells Sonic that a knight always follows orders, to which Sonic tells him,
Isn't there more to being a knight than just serving a king?
Huh?
and he gets an existential crisis as well. There's many existential crises in this game. Sonic saves her people, but it turns out that...
Huh?
You have shown courage, strength, and compassion.
Nunu tells Sonic that with the nice swords and Caliburn, Sonic can defeat King Arthur, immortality and all. All we have to do is face off against Percival, while Sonic and Caliburn grow to not hate each other, which is nice.
I've got one of the great sacred swords.
We're finally gonna fight Percival. Sonic says he has no master except the wind that flows free, and Percival calls him the Knight of the Wind. This is cinema. Sonic defeats her in a quite frankly pretty challenging fight. Percival falls to her doom, to which Sonic instantly saves her. Caliburn decides to be a cock blocker and makes Percival blush.
Save the hugs and kisses for later.
Fun fact, Caliburn was originally gonna be a girl sword. Kinda weird. Anyway, Sonic is finally called a knight. Sir Sonic, Knight of the Wind. Epic! It's now or never, freakers. We shall fight King Arthur for the final battle. Their back and forth are really compelling for some reason. They really didn't need to go this hard. And the music is so good!
I'm Sonic the Hedgehog, Knight of the Wind. Let's settle this once and for all, King Arthur.
It seems your impersonation of a knight has improved somewhat.
I have you to thank for that.
Then let us have another look at that unsightly swordsmanship.
You're gonna be sorry you asked.
Here we go! After one of the most intense fights in anime history, Sonic surrounds King Arthur with the swords and he hits him with the final blow. Take that, bitch! Bitch! We did it! We won!
Yes, I did it!
Or so we thought. King Arthur vanished like the monsters from the underworld, and now I'm confused. What is going on? Did we go through all of this for nothing? We better talk to Merlina. She says that King Arthur was an illusion? Huh? What the frick? Merlina tricked and betrayed us. She was the villain all along. This is a twist villain done well. Not like the Knuckles show where it was obvious from the beginning that Wade's father was the villain and we were supposed to act surprised by that, you stupid show! Anyway, we get a CGI cutscene where Sonic and the Knights escape the castle before it collapses. It's a sick as hell segment. God, it's so cool! The Knights pretty much give up, but Sonic is telling them that if that's all they got, then they just suck. Ninu appears out of nowhere and tells us that there's still hope to save the kingdom. Everyone must go through 4 different locations. Let's do it! Let's save the world, baby! I will talk more about the 3rd act, but how about we save that for later, okay? For now, I want to focus on this game's soundtrack and how amazing it is. A top 3 soundtrack in the series. And guess who is back for this game's soundtrack? That's right, it's none other than John Sinui. I don't know if I spelled that right. When it comes to this man's soundtrack, when it isn't trying to be what it isn't, he always delivers on the good stuff. Games like Sonic Adventure, Adventure 2, Heroes are considered to be his best works when it comes to 3D games. And maybe one sick individual says Shadow is his best work. Please, keep it to yourself. However, I'm of the opinion that this is his best work. Hell, I might say this is his magnum opus. This game's soundtrack has it all. Some of the best level themes you ever hear in the franchise, fantastic songs, and more. Speaking of returns, guess who's back again and about time too? Crash 40 came back for this game, and they sing
not 2, not 3, not 4.
5 songs! The main theme, Night of the Wind, the credits, Live Life, the boss themes, Fight the Night and Through the Fire, and if you really want to count this with me, Power Remix. Speaking of songs, with me, god damn! Might be the best final boss song in the series. It tells a story between Sonic and Merlina, and it's absolutely tremendous. It's also a leitmotif for Merlina's theme.
My eyes are filled with curiosity. You think that you have power over me.
Why is this soundtrack so good? Something I really like from this soundtrack is that you can clearly hear the leitmotif for Night of the Wind here and there, like in Mystic Lake. Live life. And even in the cutscenes. I swear, this soundtrack is my wet dream. The soundtrack is nearly perfect. Phew. I talked a lot more about the soundtrack than I intended. Can't help it, it is one of my favorite soundtracks in Sonic history. If I did a top 3, it would be number 3, Black Knight, number 2, CD, the Japanese version, and number 1, Unleashed. So that's how you know you made it big. Speaking of big, I want to talk about other stuff. You can tell this was the end of an era for the Sonic series. You can hear songs from the Adventure era, like It Doesn't Matter, Unknown from ME, Throw It All Away, Believe in Myself, and My Sweet Passion. Oddly enough, if you're like me who grew with the series, these are an absolute treat and makes you appreciate the years of being a fan of this franchise. Kind of. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to talk about the soundtrack. Yeah, let's see how this game handled gameplay and how it compares to Sonic and the Secret Rings. Oh boy. Whenever you talk about Sonic and the Black Knight and how much you like it, you always talk about the story, the music, the direction, etc. But rarely do you see someone talk about the gameplay. Hell, some would say Black Knight is a great movie. And that's it. Well, I say bullshark. I am of the opinion that Black Knight's gameplay is easy to play, hard to master, like a Sonic game should be. How does this game compare to Sonic and the Secret Rings? Let's get there, shall we? You remember how in Secret Rings you didn't have control in the traditional sense? Like how instead of controlling Sonic with buttons and all of that, it's basically Sonic Dash with motion controls, oh boy! And the worst part is that you can use normal controls, but not for the main campaign! It's just for the mini games! Someone should have gotten fired for that. Well, how does Black Knight compare to that? Well, it's the complete damn opposite. Thank you. This time, you have your trusty nunchuck and can move like in a real Sonic game. Sonic is pretty much the same he's ever been, only this time, he has his trusty sword. Hey, sword, that's so ridiculous, Lamau. Who thought this was a good idea? He has his homing attack, which is pretty nerfed in this game. He has his soul surge, which is pretty much like the soul gauge from Secret Rings. Sonic will go to astronomical speeds and do a Sowardo! Think of it like the speed break and time break, but cooler! You're probably asking if this game has motion controls, and you would be devastated to know that it does in fact have it. Is it as bad as it was in Secret Rings? Of course not even close. Like I mentioned, this game controls like a normal Sonic game. You're mostly using the controls to attack the enemies anyways. There's the standard attack. Sonic also has this buzz attack that can chain on enemies and make a huge combo, which is really satisfying when done correctly. And there's also some cinematic moments between boss fights that you have to time how you shake the control, which is actually pretty cool. Like a lot of Sonic games, it's style over substance, which is something I just accepted from Sonic games at this point. From the way I'm talking about this game, it sounds like I think the gameplay is fantastic. Perfect even. It's not. It really isn't. While the game improved when it comes to the controls, it certainly did not improve all too much on level design. You're still pretty much on rails, just like in Secret Rings. You also can't turn around, which is so stupid. We have better controls, but it's still the same thing? Lame. There's moments where you have to play a minigame just to give villagers some rings. Guys, it's money. Just take it. Those minigames are pretty annoying, especially when you have to position yourself correctly or else you can't give them the rings. Remember when I mentioned the boss saw? Yeah, it's cool and all, but sometimes it doesn't really want to work. Skill issue? Probably, but it doesn't take away that sometimes it doesn't want to work for me. Hey, weren't there multiple characters in this game? Well, yes, dear viewer, they are. Meet Lancelot, Gawain, and Percival. How do they compare to Sonic? Well, I kinda don't. Lancelot plays exactly like Sonic. The difference is that he has the things that make Shadow cool. Like for example, when you use the Soul Surge, he does a Chaos Control, which is honestly really damn cool. Probably the best character to use in this game aside from Sonic. Gawain is... not gonna lie guys, Gawain is my least favorite knight to use. He's so slow, his gliding is mid, his combat sucks, and overall he is not fun to use. His design is cool at least. The other knights look better than him as well. Never mind. And then there's Percival. Plays exactly like Blaze. Am I biased here? Maybe. But she's a joy to use for me. Of course, she has her fire powers, spin jump, and all of that shit. But it brings a problem not only with her, but with every Knight of the Round Table. There's not really a reason to play as them aside from once, and that's it. Sad as it is, but I wish they were more interesting. Why play as any of them when I can play as Sonic, who is the best character in the game? Since I'm talking about the knights, I also want to talk about the bosses and how epic they are. The bosses for Sonic and the Black Knight are the coolest shit ever. The main problem with them is that they're pretty easy. A little too easy for me. Not counting the first fight with King Arthur, which is more of a tutorial than anything. The first Lancelot is easy as hell, but at least you get to have a rematch post-game. And it's actually pretty tough. The hardest boss in the game, maybe. Actually, the fights with the Knights of the Round Table are all pretty similar. Almost the same, actually. Gawain is slightly harder than Lancelot, and Percival provides a decent challenge. Kind of. The second King Arthur boss is a fun one. One with the biggest spectacles in the game. Chasing King Arthur on the huge horse and then jumping on his ass while swinging the controls is a pretty satisfying feeling. I say the game had a pretty good final boss as well, but it feels incomplete somehow. Oh, that's right! This isn't the final boss! I'm so dumb! The Dark Queen. Unpopular opinion, but this is in my top 5 favorite final bosses in Sonic. Imagine the end from Final Horizon, but good. I love the music, the conversations between Sonic and Merlina, the spectacle of it all. And if you're really good at the game, you can beat it in 20 seconds or less. That's nuts! If the bosses weren't so repetitive, I would have no doubt in saying the collection for the bosses would be top 10. As is, it's not that great, but it has a lot of style, and it's cool enough to be somewhat enjoyable. Okay, now that we finally talked about everything I wanted, we can move to the final battle. Everyone does their part, and it makes me happy that Sonic isn't the only playable character here. One of my favorite tropes is when enemies become allies to defeat a bigger evil, and Sonic mostly does that trope really great. Notice how I said almost. But before we fight Merlina, we must fight a dragon that quite frankly should have been left for the second act and not the third. But that's my only minor complaint. Get ready, Merlina! We're gonna kick your ass! The next cutscene is, in my opinion, one of the best in the entire franchise. The dialogue, the music, the direction, everything is absolutely perfect. I don't care if it's from a Sonic game. If I find something good, I'll say it. But why? Why did Merlina do all of this? Well, here's why.
King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table will end in ruin. The King Arthur my grandfather Merlin created led to nothing but mistakes. But I can succeed with the power of the scabbard, creating a kingdom that never ends.
Yep, that's what Merlina wants to do. And it's honestly pretty fucked up. She will do some rather evil and heinous things. And Sonic instantly picks that up, asking what's good of a world that goes on forever. Merlina thinks that what she's doing is for the good of the world and tries to make Sonic understand, but he doesn't want to. And quite frankly, Neither do I. Sonic tries to attack, but it's worthless. Merlina summons a giant dark monster thing from inside of her and kills Excalibur. No! Sonic keeps getting battered and knocked down, but he keeps on getting back up. The ass whooping is insane. The knights tell him to stop fighting, to retreat, and Sonic finally says,
A knight never flees his foe, right?
"This is cinema!" Sonic keeps on getting knocked down. Everyone keeps telling him to run, that this has nothing to do with chivalry, and Sonic gets up one last time, saying that this was never about chivalry for him.
It was never about chivalry for me. I just gotta do what I've gotta do. That's all.
We get It Doesn't Matter playing, the swords, and the sickest, rawest transformation scene in the series. Excalibur Sonic.
That's the greatest of the sacred swords! Excalibur!
Let's do this!
After one of the best final bosses in the series, Sonic defeats Merlina. Sonic shows mercy and compassion to Merlina, making him a true knight. He tells her that death comes for all, but it's about what we do with our time in the world that we have, which makes it worth living. It's a beautiful message that it holds true to this day. And not make it sound preachy! It's no Puss in Boots The Last Wish, don't get me wrong, but it's still a sincere and oddly mature message for a Sonic game, and I think it does that pretty well. But we're not done yet. Sonic is revealed to be the real King Arthur in a weird way to finish the game. But it turns out it was just an excuse, so Sonic didn't go on his date with Amy, which is funny. Goodbye, Sonic. Forever.
Yikes! No! Amy, wait! Put down that hammer!
Hey! You get back here, Sonic!
Yeah, I think this game's pretty neat. It's not perfect, hell, it's not even great. But here I have a Sonic game that I can come back to and enjoy from time to time. It has fun gameplay, a great story, an amazing soundtrack, and one of my personal favorite Sonic villains to boot. It's an enjoyable Sonic game despite its flaws. I give this game a 7 out of 10. As time passes, I learned to appreciate a lot of stuff from this game. And who knows, maybe I will start doing the same for other games. I certainly appreciate a lot of stuff from other Sonic games that I don't particularly like Sonic Heroes, Sonic Frontiers, etc. Except Sonic Chronicles. I will never appreciate that game.